Whoever was here is gone. You know what? I'm just gonna start playing. And if people want to join, they can. Going back to Chihuahuan. Choose mission. Timna. So I've played this level before. As I was testing and like remembering how exactly I need to play this game because it's been a while. So I'm just going to restart it.
A new pharaoh, Den, has taken the throne of Egypt. Pharaoh is deeply concerned as enemies have begun to threaten our borders, and our nation lacks adequate supplies of valuable copper, needed to create weapons with which to equip our troops. Pharaoh Den has ordered a mining expedition into the unforgiving land of Sinai, beyond our borders and deep within Bedouin territory. The area known as Timna is rich in gold and copper ore, as well as precious turquoise gemstones, but it is otherwise barren. Conditions there will be harsh, and you'll need to import many amenities, perhaps even additional food and fine linen from Egypt. Pharaoh will demand frequent shipments from Sinai and will ask you for money, copper, gemstones, and weapons. You can use any surplus of these items to help support the expedition. Be always on your guard, for the Bedouin of the Sinai Desert are formidable adversaries, and they will not willingly allow foreigners to occupy their land, let alone plunder their mineral wealth. To lighten the burden that such living conditions impose on your city's people, build a pavilion at some busy intersection. Citizens can relax at the pavilion's juggling and music stages, and if you also build a dance school, this new type of performance will provide great entertainment.
Right, so lots of new things being introduced in this level, and I'm going to kind of cover them in a minute. I'm going to start off by kind of laying some groundwork for my city, and then once things are starting to kind of tick over, I will kind of come in with a bit more info. So we have a new, oh, that's my cat's tail that just went by. We have a new mechanic or a new, I don't know, a thing, buildings and facet to society today, which is soldiers and forts. So we are now introducing the military aspect of the game. And so this is our map, Timna. Very different from the maps that we've seen before in the game. As you can see, we have this new element of these rocks, which have these nice little handy ore nuggets that you can see here. And then we have some oases down at the bottom, but notably we don't have any farm land from the Nile, so that is not an option as a food source. So this level is largely based on hunting, which is fine. And yeah, so let's also just look at the world map here. We're very far away from the actual like heartland of Egypt, where, as they said, we're on the Sinai Peninsula, but really we're kind of right at the edge of it here at Timna. So I'll actually just use this map in a bit to just kind of explain a little bit more about the area and also like the historical significance of this bit of land. I will say that Timna is not really like a city as you see in the game. In real life, it was more like they used it for mining 100%. It was popular in the area. That was like its main function, but it wasn't like a really settled settlement as you're going to see me playing in the game. Okay, so let's get started. So all of our resource that we're going to be really dependent on is up here, but all of our houses and employees that we're going to have here are going to need water. So I need to try and set up my city with access to this grass so that I can use a water supply. So I'm going to just kind of go, ooh, I have to unpause if I want to do anything. So I think I said this before, I always kind of count my spaces in between so that I have enough. So basically I like to put all my houses on the outside of my city blocks, and then on the inside is where I put all of my like services, so to speak. So we're gonna also start with, we're gonna need a road up here. I'm also going to start off with a gold mine or two, and one copper mine, and then we're going to have a gemstone mine, and this is how I'm going to kind of start my economy in the game. I don't want to put my roads, I want to try and like place them with a mind to later industries or later mines that I might end up adding here. I need to be careful that I'm not going to I guess essentially have to destroy a lot of stuff, because I have a limited amount of Deban or money now in comparison to the other levels, so it's a bit more serious this time around. So that's enough. So basically I've put these two houses here so that these mines will all have access to workers right away, because they need to have houses nearby to access the population, but actually my main population center is going to be down here. So let's start with this, and we'll leave that at 20, and I'll maybe use that corner for a pavilion. So I try to stay away from corners a lot of the time, so then I have the flexibility to try and evolve them later into entertainment centers. As it's mentioned in the prologue of this, we have a introduction of dancers and pavilions. So that's like the next step level up in, that's the next level up when it comes to entertainment in the game. Let's also just have a look over here at our main gods. So luckily we don't really have any, except when we have Seth. He's our patron god in this level. So Seth, or Set, it's probably a more accurate name, was the ancient Egyptian god of warfare and the desert. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that he's evil. He's like an evil god. I think that's a bit of like a misnomer, but he's a harsh god. He's a brutal god. And in the Egyptian creation myth, he is a bad guy because he kills his brother Osiris, who's one of the other gods in the pantheon, and because he's jealous, and it's very much like a kind of Cain and Abel situation going on. So one of the other main buildings that I want to kind of get out and have right away is my village palace, because this is where all of my gold is going to be deposited once it gets mined from my mines. So, and you also need a firehouse and an architect's post for this. It'll also allow me to start collecting taxes right away. So yes, unfortunately I do have to tax my citizens. You know, I know nobody likes taxes, myself included, but unfortunately that is a fact of life. So I'm gonna have a storage yard here, and then I'm also gonna start with a weaponsmith. So this storage yard is gonna just be for gems, and then this one is just going to be for half copper and half weapons. So I need both of these resources pretty early on in the game. I know this from having kind of preview played it, just to kind of remind myself. So yes, I'm also going to put a shrine to Seth here, because he will be happy about that. It'll make him a easier god to. So as we can see, I've slowed down the speed in the game, so we've now got people coming in, so I'm just going to speed that up a little bit. and wait for people to settle my city. And so while they're doing that, I'm gonna start my, I don't know, spiel. No, also, Joachim, welcome back. Have I had time to look up Old Kingdom schools? No. I will do it right now and see what I can find. Egyptian... I don't know if this is going to, like, I don't know, peel the veil out over anyone's eyes, but... Oh, apparently this pauses when I'm off it. That's fine. Scribal training... Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I was saying, I'm gonna pull the wool off of anyone's eyes. Archaeologists also use Google. I'm just on JSTOR now. Scribal training... scribal profession, address. Archaeology. Let's see if that ends. Sites. Archaeology sites. Life in Egypt. Nope. Doesn't seem to be anything kind of like popping up right away from this. A lot of the stuff that's kind of coming is stuff from tombs. So from the tombs of people who were scribes, and then they take those things into their afterlife. So, yeah. Sorry. Nothing there for you right now. But, okay. So, onto my spiel while my city populates itself and gets some employees. Just a reminder, we are in what's known, or what's called in the game as the Archaic period. Is now kind of more recently referred to as the Early Dynastic period. It occurs from 3150 BCE to 2686 BCE. So this is roughly 5,000 to 4,000-ish years ago. This period was started by Narmer, the very famous king, who is said to have unified Upper and Lower Egypt, and started the first dynasty. So these are families of kings, or families where kings come from. This is a period where hieroglyphs start appearing, copper starts to become common, so that's like the primary industry here. So as you can see, my mines are busy working away, mining gold and copper for me. That's very helpful. This is, oh, okay, so I need 70 employees. And I don't have enough. Well, I'm waiting for more people to come. How much room do I have? 217. I just gotta wait for people to come. Also, my cat is meowing in the background because she's very cute and she wants attention. Adequate maintenance. But I have an I have an architect's thing. I have an architect's post. I don't know what these people are talking about. Oh, and now everything's on fire. Alright, so this is what happens when you don't have enough people. I'm just starting over. Right? I'm just going to start over this level, because this level, if you don't get it right out the gate, you're kind of screwed. So we'll start with one gold mine and one copper mine, because then that means that I have less demand in terms of employees, and one gemstone mine. And we'll do this. And we'll go here. Okay. And this. I think I did this the last time. So I'm moving this up. So that's 1, 2, 3, 2. Perfect. There we go. start off, and this time I'll do 4 people living here because that might make my life a little bit easier. Architect's post, I'm just going to put out right here. Firehouse next. Police station can go here. And then we'll have a nice little road. Actually, well, the roadblock can go here because we need our storage yards. We'll start off this time with just the 1 storage yard instead of 2, because clearly I didn't learn my lesson. Oh, I just did the undo button. I hate that. Okay. Accept, not an accept, accept, fine, yes. Here we go. There we go. And, whoa! I just pulled something up on my computer that I did not mean to. And just put that roadblock there. And so clearly last time I did not have enough houses. So now we will just do more. 20, 80. That should be fine. We'll do firehouse. So I should actually be putting these here and being more efficient with my time. Village palace. That 1 tree. That 1 tree. Okay, and water supply will help me. I'll do it. Yeah, I'll just do it here. Water supply will help me later in terms of involving my housing. Okay, now we're off to a better start. I remember that cute cat from the Raiders of the... Yes, she is very cute. She's... I don't know. She's awake. She's normally sleeping above my desk. But if the stream goes well, I'll give you guys all the cat tax before I go away. So back to some historical info. One thing I wanted to touch on that I don't know if anybody has noticed in the streams yet is that I've been doing my best. I don't really know how good of a job I've been doing. To avoid using the word Pharaoh when I've been talking a lot of these earlier kings in these levels. And there is an actual reason for this, which is that Pharaoh itself as a title actually didn't really come into use until the New Kingdom of Egypt. So quite a ways on from these levels, but we just use it to ascribe to all Egyptian kings because that's just, you know, the title that we're familiar with. When you translate Pharaoh, which is an Egyptian word, it's not a Greekified Egyptian word, which is pretty typical. It literally means great house. And the pronunciation of it would have varied as the language evolved, you know, between the different periods. But they wouldn't have said it as Pharaoh. They probably would have said something closer to Pharaoh, not Pharaoh. From the 12th dynasty onward, it appears as in a wish formula that says, "Great house, may it live, prosper, and be in health." But in this case, it's referring to like a royal house or like a royal mansion and not a person. So the earliest confirmed instance that we have of somebody being described as a Pharaoh in like a title as a ruler is a letter that's addressed to Akhenaten, who is a very famous ancient Egyptian king. Going back to the like little mission intro that we had earlier, the Pharaoh, well, the date that we have right now is around 2800 BCE, and the Pharaoh that's currently ruling over Egypt right now is a guy called Den. Den is a forest name, spoke about that in the last stream, but it kind of roughly translates to he who brings water, and this is probably a reference to a lot of the prosperity that his reign had. So he was the fourth king of the fourth king of the first dynasty of Egypt. So he's a few kings removed from Narmer and Ahor-Aha, who are the previous 2 levels. Oh look, it's a good thing I have a copper mine, because people need copper. So this is what happens. Another thing that happens a lot in the game is that all of a sudden Pharaoh wants, or king, whatever. There's no way I'm going to keep this straight now that I've said it. Wants you to provide stuff. So I've got 1 thing of copper in here. And maybe in a little bit I'll get a second one. But I don't want to be short by too many employees, because as we saw the last time, when that happens, nothing's employed and then all my buildings fall down. So that's not fun. Going back to Den, he was the best. He actually is one of the kings that we have the most archaeological evidence for in the early dynastic period, and he ruled for a really long time of 42 years, which maybe doesn't seem like it's that long for us, but we have to put this into the context of, you know, ancient Egyptian lifespans, which were much shorter than ours. I don't know if that's really a surprise for anyone, but yeah, they did not live nearly as long as what we are used to. And that's very much just related to the fact that there was a lot more disease, their diets were less healthy, and they didn't have the benefit of modern medical care. So right now what I'm doing is I'm putting up a hunting lodge and then a granary so that we can start getting food to people, because this is the next kind of step that I need to advance my population so that I can have more houses, etc., etc., etc. So as we can see, we have some ostriches here, which my hunters are going out to hunt. These are generally the animal that, I think you get gazelles and ibexes as well. You have other animals in the game, but I don't think we've come across them yet. So yeah, ostriches. Speaking of which, in one of my past archaeology news videos, there was a discovery in Israel of like the remains of, like, I think it was ostrich eggs or something like that at a campfire, which basically meant that people would have been making like ostrich omelets. And you think of the size of ostrich eggs, like that's so crazy. Or the fact that, like, I guess nowadays, like, maybe that's just me being super Western, but like the idea of having an entire ostrich egg as an omelet is very foreign to me. Going back to Den, King Den, almost King Dan. He was the first person to use the title of King of Upper and Lower Egypt. So Narmer is the guy who unified it, and we see him portrayed separately with the 2 crowns of the 2 lands, but Den is kind of the first guy that's like bringing everything together. And he's the first one that we see with the double crown, which, if you look to my nice little image thing at the bottom right of your screen, is the example that I've pulled from Wikipedia and incorporated here. I'm taking my stream to a whole new level, guys. All right. All right, I can fill my requests, so I'm just gonna do that now. I also need to start recruiting some people for my army, because I know from this level that all of a sudden I'm gonna get invaded and it's not gonna be fun. I'm gonna move my police station actually, and I'm gonna put my recruiter like here, and I'm gonna make a weaponsmith, because the infantry forts are much more, so like in this game the archer forts, you don't need any weapons, they just like automatically get staffed, but the infantry ones you need weapons to be produced, but they're also more powerful, so it's just kind of like, which one do you need to choose? So I'm just going to put one right here, and I want to be careful again of all the money I'm spending here, because as I said before, I don't like to go into debt in this game. So oh, is my game about to crash? I hope not. Probably. This is the risk of running this in a windowed mode that it's not really set up for. So I'm just going to close the game. Come on. Oh, this is going to be fun. So I've figured out how to run the game in a window, but obviously nothing can ever be perfect. So I'm going to just end the task, and then I'll just restart it for you. Let's see where my autosave got to. Game autosave. Okay. It's not too far from where I was. I just need to set up my military. Okay. I'm just gonna quickly redo this so that I can start going on another tangent. I need a weaponsmith, and I need my fort of my infantry. Cool. Right. I've got some questions and comments in the chat, so I'm just going to look at them one sec. Last time I played this game, I single-handedly caused the death of all Egypt because I forgot about food. Yeah, it's kind of important. Those are some really interesting facts about ancient Egyptian words for kings. What did the ancient Egyptians call their police? So, police itself as a concept is actually relatively recent. It's not what ancient Egyptians had as a police force would have not been what we think of as police. There is a name for it. Police in ancient. Oh yes, okay. So the term that we use for it, that we most heavily associate with it, is one that you might recognize, and it's magi, which is used in one of our most famous and best films about ancient Egypt, which is the Mummy movies from the 90s. And that's Oded Fair, that's his character, who I had such a huge crush on as a kid, by the way. He's magi, and these are they're like desert police, and they were like a lot of the time they're associated with guarding the tombs in the Valley of the Kings, but they're really a nomadic group from Nubia. But yeah, they're first mentioned in the Old Kingdom but yeah, Magi comes from the land of Magi, but yeah. Otherwise, police is a bit, I don't know, it's not to say that they didn't have law and order and people who enforced it, but it's not police in the same way that we think of it today. Oh, crap. Well, that's fine. Going back to Den. The picture you see in the bottom right of the stream screen here is this instance where I say we have the very first time that we see a king wearing the double crown of Egypt. So that's where, instead of having two separate crowns as we see on the Narmer palette, he's wearing one crown on one side and one crown on the other side, they've combined them together into the crown that most of you would probably recognize from a lot of artwork and stuff about ancient Egypt. So this is from I think it's an ivory plaque, or it's called a plaque or a label from Den's tomb. And we can very clearly see on the picture a white crown and then the red crown. And they're incorporated together with the colors and everything. So that's really cool. As I said, Den reigned for a really long time, and at the beginning of his reign, we think that... Oh, I have to do another 900 copper. Well, great. That's sorry, 500 copper. Right. I'm just going to stockpile this resource, and maybe that'll make things a little bit easier. Now that I've got this, okay, I've got quite a high unemployment, so I'm going to start doing some other things that are going to be good for my city. Do a nice fodder, and then I'll do a storage yard. So this is for my pot tray. Everybody needs that. And we'll do over here as well another copper mine. And eventually we'll get around to doing another gold mine. Blah, 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 blah. See, now I don't have enough people living here. I just can't keep anybody happy. So I gotta wait for my copper thing to stockpile, and then I can do some more, and I'll wait. Oh, you know, I have enough food, so I'm gonna start my bazaar. Yes, I know I have 6 months. Thank you so much for the reminder. Put my bazaar here so it's easy for them to go get food, and then they can walk around and give everybody food. Yay, everybody wins. So we think that, you know, as I said, Den had a very long reign, and he probably started as ruler when he was a child. And at that point, he probably had a regent, which we think was his mother, who was a woman named Mernith. And she was probably regent for him for several years. This wasn't unusual. It's not the first time that we've seen this done in ancient Egyptian history, even this far back. And it's also something that goes forward. One of my favorite things about ancient Egyptians is their women's liberation. In contrast to a lot of other cultures, like for example Rome or Greece, they didn't have. Women weren't necessarily second-class citizens in ancient Egypt. They had a lot of rights. They, served a lot of valuable purposes in society. The bloodline of ancient Egypt was often thought of the kings. At one point, they started thinking that it went through the women, which is a lot of the time why you then have this inter-sibling marriages between half-sisters and half-sisters, and sometimes full brothers and full sisters, is because the line of the royals goes through the women and not through the men. So see, I knew that this gem request was coming. So yeah, Mernith, eventually, Den grows into his majority and he starts being able to rule by himself. So she was rewarded eventually with when she went into the afterlife. She had a really nice tomb that her son built for her, that was as a thank you. Very kind of him. I'm gonna put I don't want people getting ill. Yeah, do a shrine, because otherwise Seth is gonna get mad at me. How is he feeling? Apathetic. Doesn't care. That's fine. One of the important innovations from the reign of Den is that we start to see hieroglyphs being used as in numbering. Prior to that, they weren't used for that. So that's a really cool invention that he adds to hieroglyphs. As I said, his reign is pretty well attested archaeologically. Well, some Bedouins are coming to invade us. Who's surprised? Nobody. As typical of First Dynasty kings, Den had a tomb in a place called Abydos, which is like the early dynasty tombs. Oh, more copper. Jesus Christ. Oh, now they want gold. I mean, geez, these people are demanding. I have some unemployment, so I'll find another gold mine in. So Den's tomb, out of the ones that we have at Abydos, is the largest and most finely built, and it's also the first one to feature a staircase leading down to the chambers, and also his burial chamber has a floor that's made of red and black granite stone, and this is the first time that we see stone and that kind of hard stone being integrated into the construction of tombs, as opposed to just digging into the bedrock and using mud bricks. And so I've just said here that we have we have a new trade route open to Mennefer, the level that we just played, and they buy a lot of the things that we have to sell. So here's another way to now make a little bit of money. I'll do it when it's over. We'll do over 400 because I don't want to get smacked with another request. Beard, that's exportable. I could import chickpeas, I'll do that later. So in Den's tomb, Flinder's Petrie also helped excavate part of it. I don't know if he excavated all of it, but he excavated out of Bidos and he found things associated with Den. So this includes, some things that were found in his tomb include 20 labels. This is what I mentioned, these things that you have down in the corner of the screen here. You had 20 labels made of ivory and ebony. 18 of them were found by Petrie in spoil heaps that were left by a less thorough French archaeologist. And so this includes this one that we see here, which is the double crown, as well as others that depict him running this between ritual stele at the Sed festival, which is like the Egyptian version of a jubilee, but instead of having it like, you know, every 10 years or after like a significant amount of time, I think they had it like every year. So every year the king had to like run to try and prove that he was still, I don't know, ritually deserving of being king. Oh, we've got Bedouins are coming. Whoop-de-woo. I've got infantry. That's fine. One of the other things that was found is one of the major labels that was in this tomb is something that's known as the McGregor label, and or its actual kind of more accurate title is the King Den's sandal label, which you now see on the bottom right of your screen. And this is actually his feature image on his Wikipedia page, which is totally not where I got this from because, you know, people have a real problem when you use Wikipedia as a basis for your research, like to go to places to learn more about things. You can also find it on the British Museum website because it currently resides in the British Museum if you're ever there and you're looking through the Egyptian exhibit. Oh no. Okay. So this is when I say sandal label, I'm not exaggerating. This is a label that was used for his sandals. I think it's made out of ivory. You can see the little like drilled hole in the top right corner of it. It's dated to about 2985 BCE, and it shows the first complete depiction of a king wearing what's known as the Nemes headdress, which is that famous kind of headdress or crown that you would probably think of when you think of King Tutankhamun and his funeral mask. It's that striped bag that they wear on their head. And I also want to point out here that Den is in a very classically Egyptian pose of smiting his enemy. So he's grabbed somebody by the hair and he's about to like smack them across the face or whatever with his mace. If you also look just to above the man being smoked, you have you see this square with like a bird sitting on top of it, and that is a serach. So this is the precursor to cartouches, which are the famous kind of symbols that we see around kings' titles in later Egypt. That's the word I'm looking for. Going back to our sandal plaque or sandal label, it has a hieroglyphic inscription which reads, "I was the one who completed the first strike to the east," which is basically a direct reference to this level that we're currently playing in. And it's accompanied by the jackal standard of the god Wepwawet. And so this shows that he had a victory over people in the east. I'll get more into this in a second. I have a battle to fight. I feel like this is a very timely time for to be talking about this label right now. Luckily, oh great, they're over there. So, I'm gonna put my army over here to deal with these Bedouin who are just so inconveniently attacking to attack these people. I've said this before, I've seen that people complain a lot about the military in this game and not liking the mechanics of it or how it was built. Personally, I like it. Oh, now my game's crashed again. Alright. Did I close task manager? That was so easy. This is a fun music, isn't it? I'm probably gonna have to play that battle through again. Well, okay. Now it's just getting a bit glitchy. I don't appreciate when this happens. Load save, game, autosave. There we go. So I think this is right before my battle happens, so I better go check that I've not paid my pharaonic request. And I'll just put these guys over here. Right. Okay. So, after we've been so rudely interrupted, oh no. Yes. I'll also mention, so last thing to talk about for Den's tomb, it was surrounded by the burials of 136 men and women who were buried at the same time as him, thought to be his retainers, members of his court, servants, etc. Examinations of their skeletons has shown that some of them were strangled, and so they were basically sacrificed to go serve the king in his afterlife. This is a somewhat common thing that we see in these First Dynasty period burials. But I will also say, I don't think I mentioned this yesterday. Oh, crap. I've got thieves. Alright, I need to up the ante on my stuff. So I need to provide some diversions so that people are occupied and not robbing tax collectors. 1 second. No, don't do this to me. Come on. Alright. You know what? I'll take the game crashing over basically not being able to do things the way that I want to. Load save game. Autosave. Pay my debts. Go over here. Maybe I'll be able to get past this bit this time. We'll see. Also, this annoys me. But also this is good because it gives me a reason, because I know what's coming, to kind of expand on, get rid of some of my unemployment. So maybe people won't rob. Oh, is there? Have I put a police station up down here? Oh, I don't think I have. Risks, crime. Oh, yeah. Whoops! Invading army is here. Let's go take care of those guys. Outstanding requests? No. I need to find another trade route. Ah, okay. See here. Buy papyrus. I don't sell it. They don't buy anything. What's the point? These people... Alright, so basically my next goal is to get past 800 Deben so that I can open a trade route to sell copper, because that will be my main income source in a moment. I'll also just open, since, do I have enough money? No, I don't have enough money for a gemstone mine. That's fine. Being invaded again. Again, nobody's surprised. Yeah, so I was just saying, I don't think I mentioned this yesterday, but I meant to. I had it in my notes. King Hor-Aha, who's the previous level of Men Nefer, is the first king that we have this like record of him being buried with sacrificed people with him. So yeah, I can't remember if I mentioned that or not. So clearly that then carries down into the later generations, so that by the time we have Den, it's a pretty regular thing. So, you know, it's just some risks of the job, so to speak. The next topic that I have some information for you on is mining in ancient Egypt. So obviously that's like the clear focus of this level. So I'll show you how my mines are working up here. I gotta be careful not to have too much copper. Actually, I can do a storage yard in this mine. Except none. Weapons, copper. And then this guy, I'm gonna accept none and only gonna accept gems. Okay. So, mining in Egypt has a very long history. It dates back to the pre-dynastic, so before this, even this level. We think that active mining began in ancient Egypt around 3000 BCE, and they would have been worked by slaves. I'm not going to gloss over that. This is not like the pyramids where, you know, people always think that slaves built them, but actually maybe some slaves are involved, but the vast majority of it were free citizens and laborers who were effectively building monuments as a part of paying their taxes. These would, like I said, in direct contrast, these mines would have been worked by slaves who probably would have been beaten if they didn't work enough, and they would have been working in some really crappy conditions. In terms of the kinds of things that Egyptians were mining, copper, gold, the two most obvious that we have in this level. Also, they liked their precious and semi-precious stones. So turquoise was particularly valuable. Beryl, amethyst, lapis lazuli, malachite. The goddess of mining is Hathor, or Hathor, as I think a lot of people tend to say her name. And, you know, in statues and inscriptions to her tend to be found in mining locations. Egypt became a major gold producer in the Old Kingdom, and then it maintained that for a long time, around 1500 years after. And it started off, you know, exploiting things in the Nile Valley, and then as things got more established, they started expanding out into the Sinai, which is kind of roughly where we are now in this level. Okay, people are going to be here in a month. Whoop-de-woo. I can't remember if they come from up here, or they tend to come from over here, or so like the top left or the top right, and then occasionally they come from the side. So the earliest settlers in the Sinai, who arrived around 8,000 years ago, were miners and people who were drawn to the turquoise and the copper deposits in this area, so entirely on brand with this part of the game. I'm just gonna... Some of the earliest known items of jewelry that we have from the prehistoric period come from the eastern desert, and copper slag from the pre-dynastic time is found in Bir Nasab, which is in the southern Sinai. The turquoise mines are more southwestern Sinai, so I'll actually just go to my map here. This is the kind of Sinai Peninsula. So Timna, where we are, is here, but really the mines that I'm talking about, they tend to be along this kind of southwestern coast, which is obviously a bit closer than this bit. King Den is, and his reign, we start to have inscriptions mentioning pacification of the Sinai Bedouin, and then we found inscriptions featuring him in this famous like smiting pose in the Wadi El Humur, which is southern Sinai. That's kind of like right around this region right here. So not so much in Timna. Yeah. Oh, I've got lots of money now. What did I say? Oh, I gotta do another gemstone mine. Yeah, 'cause eventually I'm gonna get caught out with somebody being like, give me lots of gemstones. Right, I also think I'm gonna up the ante on my entertainment because people probably bored. That there. And a dance school doesn't cost that much more. We'll put that there. And then I'm going to make this corner, okay, into a pavilion. So now we're gonna have juggling, dancing, and musicians. Fun time for everybody. I'll put another weaponsmith as well, since I now have a bunch of people asking for weapons, which I'm probably not going to be able to do in time, but it is what it is, guys. Okay, Seth's pissed. So, let's do... a festival square. Oh, well, we can't because the game's crashing. End task. Launch again. It's just a blip, guys. It's just a blip in the game. It's fine. Okay. Alright, great. I basically just left off where I started. So I want to make sure that where I put this festival square is going to be visited by architect people, so that it doesn't fall down, because it does burn down if you don't put it near people. So I think actually what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to probably end up having like a bit of a suburb here that I can expand later to include more people when I need to meet my population goal. And just do this. Put my festival, okay, festival square. Go slightly closer. Yeah. So this square can go here. And then so I can do 1, 2, 3. I was gonna do like a small neighborhood over here. And I can't forget our police station, our firehouse, and our architect post. Police station, water supply, temple. Everyone's pretty happy. Hope they will. Right. I have a bit to talk. Actually, I'm gonna talk about Timna and the Sinai now, and then I'm gonna finish talking about the military. Oh, this has gone on for over an hour. Man, I can go on tangents. Hathor. So, Timna in this particular spot and the Sinai. So, we know that from around the first dynasty or before that, the Egyptians were mining turquoise in the Sinai. Now at these two locations that I just mentioned, these were not like permanent settlements as you kind of see here. They would have been mined on a seasonal basis. Okay, these guys are over here. And they might, it's thought that they're some of the first historically like attested mines that we know of. We also, now we get the military music, which we weren't getting before. I don't know why that is. I think this is going to be fine, because they slightly outnumber me, but I think my soldiers are of better quality than theirs, so then they tend to... Yeah, see? I'm golden. Oh, look, and I've got veterans now. Sweet. So this area would have been called by the Egyptians Diao, or the mining country. I'm saying that probably completely wrong. Also, it was known as Ketu Mafkat, which is ladders of turquoise. Again, in reference to turquoise, this very valuable semi-precious stone that they really liked. So we'll go for an archery fort as well, because I'm just cautious that as you play this game, the army incursions get bigger and bigger. So, alright, I'm also going to do a festival to set, because otherwise he's going to get pissed and he's going to kill all of my soldiers. So the Timna Valley, if we go back to our map here, is like kind of the tip of the end of Eastern Sinai. And so if you go onto a modern map today, that is part of Israel. And it is an area that is known for being rich in copper ore. It's been mined since the 5th millennium BCE. From the 13th to the 8th centuries BCE, so this is after this period that we're in. It would have been part of something known as the Kingdom of Edom, which were a people that lived south of Israel and eventually get absorbed, and they are described as biblical foes of the Israelites. But we do have records of Egyptians having kind of solitary settlements in here. You shouldn't think that just because they have a settlement here, that means that they control this entire region. That wouldn't have been the case. We also have a major temple to Hathor, constructed by Seti II in the New Kingdom, found at copper mines in the Timna Valley, but the vast majority of the Egyptian mining evidence that we have at Timna is from like the New Kingdom to the late period. It is not from this early dynastic period. So using this is a bit like, or at least I couldn't find anything when I was researching it about the records of people being at this particular spot that is known as the Timna Valley. So the next picture that I have in the bottom right of the screen is of the Timna Valley, and it's showing something called Solomon's Pillars, which are a rock formation named after King Solomon. So we have lots of evidence of mining in Timna Valley, including mining camps, slag heaps, and other evidence. But as I said, these mostly, a lot of this belongs to a much later period. The New Kingdom, which, as we mentioned the other time, is my favorite period in ancient Egyptian history. So I'm going to just play a little bit more, and then kind of my last big thing of information that I have is on Egyptian military, because obviously we're playing military in this level. So let's watch my kingdom start to prosper a little bit. I'm going to try and upgrade some of my houses, because these guys, you know, they're looking a little shanty-shoddy. The gardens are less expensive. Beautification. Statues are also not expensive. I did not realize that you could rotate through the statues until like a year ago when I played the last time I played this game. I went the entire time when I was a kid being like, oh, it's so annoying that I only have like this basically, sorry. When I was a kid, I would play it and then have this statue And this is a statue I used everywhere. And I remember being like, looking at like some of the promotional material and being like, oh, it's so annoying that they didn't include all those statues in the gameplay. They did. I just didn't know that I had to press R to scroll through to get them. Alright. And because I love cats, we're gonna do some cat statues. Some statues to Bastet to persuade my citizens that they want to upgrade their houses. This is the prosperity music. I love the music from this game. I've said this probably a million times before. Cool. Well, we've had a festival. Well, okay. Now Set's happy, but I'm gonna keep him happy, so I'm gonna do another festival. Let's do another bazaar for these guys. I'm gonna do a physician and an apothecary. What was that message that I just got? Population milestone. Go me. I'm also actually 11%. I'm gonna put in another gold mine now that I can actually afford to, because this means, because the more gold I have, the faster my money goes up, the better I do. Oh, and I'm gonna open that trade route so that I can trade copper once I'm over, let's say 400. Cool. What are the prosperity culture? 50, 70? Jesus. Demanding. I'm gonna put my personal mansion over here. Alright. I think it can kind of start ticking over now. I'll wait to go up and then I'll put in some more gardens and make everything look good. Just gonna look into the comments. I really love these... What? Whatever. I really love these Let's Plays with your historical information added. Thank you for doing these. Matuo said that. You're welcome, Matuo. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. Joaquim is saying the relationship between Isis and Hathor is so confusing. The relationships between all Egyptian gods, frankly, is confusing, if you ask me. That's because they weren't stagnant. They were very interchangeable. And I think one of the things that people a lot of the time lose perspective, or they don't really like think about in their head, is that the Egyptian civilization was predominant and like its culture lasted and developed over a period of around 3,000 years. And when you put that into perspective of us just now reaching the cusp of 2,000 years, I think that's really interesting, especially in terms of like when we think about modern day religions and, you know, how much they have changed or have not changed in comparison to what they were like 2,000 years ago. And the Egyptian gods, you know, they had a huge pantheon. They had kind of their main sets of gods and their main pairings of gods. But then, as I said last week, we also have cult centers. So we have patron gods of specific cities. We have local deities of villages. We also have, you know, as different families rise and fall, you have different gods becoming more important or less important over time. Some gods get put together and sometimes they're separated. So a really great example of this is Amun, so A-M-U-N. He was the local god of what we call Thebes, which is a city that we're not going to... I think we'll play this later in the game, but that is the Greek name for it. I don't know the Egyptian name off the top of my head, but sweet. But he was the local like god of that city, and in the second intermediate period, at the end of it, the family that was in charge, that there were the kings that were kind of in charge, and their basis and their capital was Thebes. They kicked out the Hyksos foreigners, and they established the new kingdom and the 18th dynasty, which is like the beginning of the heyday of the ancient Egypt, the empire, their golden age, whatever you want to call it. And with them rose Amun. And he goes from being kind of a more regional god to all of a sudden he becomes like the most important god in ancient Egypt. And he then gets associated with Ra. So a lot of the time you see him called Amun Ra. He has a consort. I can't remember who it is. Yeah, that's just one of these things, is that this religion is not, it's not stiff, it's not very controlled, it's very fluid, which is not really what our religions tend to be like nowadays, with the exception of Hinduism. That's kind of like the closest parallel that you can think of. It's not all about everything being very like set and ordered. It's just very adaptable, and like I said, things change over time in history. How we think of Jesus today is not how people is, and how we worship him is very different to how people did it 1,000 years ago or up to 2,000 years ago. Things develop. All right. Whoa, I've got tons of money now, so let's do some gardens. I'm in the garden. That is a reference that I don't think anybody's going to understand except my husband, who is not watching me play. He's sitting in the living room doing something else with his Saturday evening. But look, I got lots of people now. Yay, everybody's happy. Do a lavish festival. I also think I need to start importing beer. Blah, blah. You don't scare me, invaders. I've got the hang of this now. Just watch. I'm going to get totally screwed. They're going to come in and I'm just going to get utterly defeated. Population of 2,000. Okay, kingdom rating. Which just means I have to fulfill requests. I'm at 1,000 population now, so I effectively have to double it, which I can kind of do, I think, without having to seriously expand my base of operations. Let's start importing some beer. I'm gonna do 400 just because I don't want to start importing more than I'm exporting, because that very quickly leads to debt. Okay. What was I going to check? Do I have a jeweler? No. That's fine. Scribal school. Weaponsmith, personal mansion. Alright, I've got everything. I'll make a bandstand. Up my culture rating. And I'll do a booth as well. And since infantry, archers, I don't know. I don't want to use up too many weapons. I'll do infantry just to be safe. Just in case somebody tries to come out of nowhere and really trip me up, which does happen. Oh look, we've got some goods. Here, I'll do a courthouse, even though it's not really gonna... I mean, it will... Oh yeah, it will get used because these guys all have beer now. Alright, now I have to find a money suck, or sorry, an employee suck industry. I suppose I can do a scribal school even if I don't have papyrus yet. I'll do more weaponsmith as well. I'll do another weaponsmith here. I'll do another gold mine here. Yeah, I'll do another. No, this isn't gonna work, is it? No, I've got plenty of gold mines. I'll do a gemstone mine, and then I can put it here. And then we'll have lots of gemstones to export. How have I done? Still at 19%. Oh, it's a good thing I just opened a gemstone mine, isn't it? I think I can squeeze another one in here. You're not really supposed to put in intersections because that fools with how things walk. So we'll just stick with this. And I'll stop exporting gems because if I have a request, I should get focus on that. How am I doing? Doing good for that, not so much for that, and not so great for the population because I'm about to have a lot of unemployment. That's going to make people really unhappy. These people don't have... No, they do have all the things that they need, don't they? That's annoying. You know what? I'll just do another pavilion because... I think pavilions take up quite a few employees. 20. Yes. Okay, the Bedouin are up north. So we'll have everyone head over here. Cool. Right, military. My last spiel that I have, and then I think I'm gonna sign off for the evening. I don't think I need to finish this level right now. Haha, Seth killed everyone for me. That's one of the benefits in this game. I wish that's how things could work in real life. Pray to God hard enough and they enact vengeance on your enemies if you so wish it. I'm about to fill that. Right. Alright, so military in ancient Egypt. So tech destroyer. By the way, in an old episode of Doctor Who, he battled an Egyptian god called Sotek, destroyer of worlds. Problem is, I've never heard of a god named Sotek. Never heard of Sotek either. The closest that I've ever heard of is Sobek, who is the crocodile-headed god of the Nile. Maybe they're conflating it with that. I don't know. I don't watch Doctor Who, so I'm not quite sure how accurate they try to be with their mythology when they reference it in the TV show. Alright. Gems. Woo. We'll go over 600 this time. Yes, I know I do. Oh, so such high unemployment. Okay, let's do a second pavilion over here. Sorry, a third one. Oh, I'm gonna have to get rid of some houses. That's fine. I can live with that. How much is the course book? So it's 10. It's more than a temple. Oh yeah, okay. And now we've got the you're doing really good in the game music again. I don't know if this is... I don't think anyone has done a project to try and recreate ancient Egyptian music. I don't know. Actually, that might be something I want to look into for another episode, or another stream. Because it would be really cool to kind of listen to what their music might have been like. There's a really cool project that came out probably about a decade ago now, which is called the Lyre Project. And it was a bunch of academics and musicians who came together and they recreated something called the Golden Lyre of Ur, which you can see in the British Museum, I think. And then they basically recorded an album in Babylonian, I think is the language. So they talked to linguists in terms of how things would have been pronounced and got texts, and they got a singer, and then they used other period accurate instruments like bells and stuff like that, and then they made an album called The Flood, which is largely doing pieces from, oh crap, what's it called? Oh, I'm gonna have to look this up because it's going to really bug me if I can't remember the name of this. No. Mesopotamian myth king. Why is Gilgamesh? It's a bunch of stuff from the Epic of Gilgamesh, and then they've just like done their own interpretation of how it might have sounded. And it is one of my favorite musical albums of all time. There's a song called The Lullaby. I love it. Oh, the game's freezing again. Who's surprised? Nobody. I think it doesn't like when I go away from the game. I think that kind of like interrupts it, and that's why that keeps happening, but we're almost finished here, so. Alright, so I've got my bandstand. I've got my mines. I've got my forts. Right. This is going to just be a really happening part of town. There's going to be bandstands and pavilions everywhere. My culture rating is going to be through the roof in this game. Yeah. Okay, so last bit that I want to talk about today is military. So we will hover over some of my forts. Oh, well, how on brand. I'm being attacked by the Bedouin again. Okay, and we've got our army music. I think that they'll be able to make short work of these guys. Perfect. Alright, you guys aren't even needed. Go back home. Anyway, alright, so looking at this. So, during the Old and Middle Kingdom, the Egyptian armies were really basic. So, like, soldiers were a mix of conscripts and volunteers, and the weapons that they were using probably would have been spearheads, maces, battle axes, and then a large shield that would have been wood and covered in leather. They know that they had these stone maces. These are some of the artifacts that I showed these are some of the artifacts I spoke about in the last stream. We had these maces in the Archaic period, but we think that they kind of retired them later for like axes, and then they were only really using these maces in ceremonial ways. So you would have had spearmen, as you can see here. They're called infantry, but like these guys are carrying spears, not swords. You know, they make a stabbing motion when they're killing people. And then they would have been supported by archers, as you see here. And using, you know, arrows with either, first stone and then copper arrowheads. As you can kind of see, these guys are probably wearing the Nemes headdress and a bit of a skirt, and they're not wearing armor. And that is period accurate. They did not really use armor in these periods. They did also have like foreigners or like mercenaries. So Nubians, the Magi, what I mentioned earlier, and the Nubians are actually like the best archery units. Oh no. Maybe a bunch of people leaving. That's fine. So as early as the Old Kingdom, we have them using like military units, and then a military hierarchy appears in the Middle Kingdom. The bow and arrow is obviously a pretty crucial weapon, but it wasn't nearly as good as we have bows today. They initially made them out of horn, but by this period that we see here, they're out of wood, and they have a single curvature, and they're using animal sinew and plant fibers for their bowstrings. Yeah. I will expand on this more as the game develops, because we do eventually see fortifications and other types of military things, primarily chariots. That's probably the thing that most people like think of. But those don't come. Chariots don't come until after the second intermediate period in the New Kingdom, because they're actually like I think they're like a foreign invention that was basically brought in by the Hyksos, and there's like a new technology that then gets utilized. I'm gonna put in a juggler school, a conservatory here, just to make sure that I have enough of these things. Maybe that'll also help with my unemployment. Right, Joachim has a few more comments for us in the chat. Sobek was the Lord of Crocodiles. Yeah. Thinking about it, closest to an Egyptian destroyer world would be Apophis. I guess so. Or Set, I guess. Oh, okay. So Apophis is the deity of chaos, darkness, and disorder. And appears as a great serpent. Yes. And he battles Ra. Okay. Yeah, and then he was thought to live in the underworld. And then Amit is the creature that eats your heart if it's not good enough, and if you haven't been a good enough person, and then you know don't get your way into the afterlife. But Amit is the like main villain in Moon Knight season 1. Maybe they'll bring Apophis in later. I don't know. I haven't read the comics. I don't know where this show is going, but as a show, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I thought it was a really cool inclusion of Egyptian mythology in it, and Egyptian music, etc. And I think it was done by an Egyptian director or like showrunner, which is pretty cool. It was not filmed in Egypt. There were scenes of it set in Jordan. Or sorry, they weren't set in Jordan. They're meant to be in Egypt, but they were filmed in Jordan and I know because when I was watching it, I was like, that looks familiar. And it turns out that it was in Wadi. I think it was in Wadi Rum. Oh, Emma's come for the cat tax. Oh, hello. Oh yes, that's a very happy hello. Come on, look there. I love ancient Egyptians so much that I also basically worship my cat. It's bad. She's very spoiled. Say hello to everybody on the stream. Hello. Okay, you can go do what you want now. She's very interested in what's behind the monitor because this is not how things are normally set up. Khonsu. Also spelled Khons or Khons. No, so Khonsu is... So in Moon Knight, Khonsu is the patron god of Moon Knight who gives him his powers. And they are fighting against Amit, who is a female goddess who, I don't know, wants to take over the world. They fudge what they do with Amit in the TV show, but sorry, I was mixing up Amit and Apophis. Blah, blah. Oh, I want copper. Well, you know what? I think I'm done for tonight, guys. We've gone an hour and a half, which is longer than I intended because, I just wanted to kind of do a quick stream tonight to kind of test and see how everything is running now that I've figured out how to run the game in a window. Because, yeah, it took me about an hour today to figure it out. I was like Googling all over the place. It was really difficult, I think, partly because, like, I'm fairly computer savvy, but I wouldn't describe myself as like a computer expert. And, ooh, that is pissed. That's too possible. You know, people post about how you're supposed to fix things and they assume that you have like a working knowledge of a lot of the things that they're talking about, and it just took me forever to figure out. And even then it's still crashing. So that's maybe something that I will look into before my next stream. But I've been enjoying doing these. It looks like you guys are enjoying watching them and seeing them. So I'm probably... I can't guarantee that I'm going to keep doing them before premiere of all of my videos, but at the very least I'm going to attempt to do them before the premieres of all my archaeology news videos. And I'm also, this is all kind of like getting me thinking about, you know, I'm compiling all of this information, so I'm wondering if I could take some of it and like make it into a better video than just a live stream, and do a bit of like a bit of a course or a lecture on Egypt and these different sites and these different periods. Maybe that would be something that I could put as like I'm just thinking of ways to monetize because AdSense doesn't really do much for me. Speaking of which, I'm about to end the stream, so I'll kind of just wrap things up here. If you liked everything that you saw today, if you enjoyed listening to me ramble on very incoherently and piecemeal about Timna, Egypt, mining, military matters, etc., and you want to see more from me, I have several other streams that I've done already playing the game on the channel that you can check out, and I will be doing more of them going in future, so that's why you should subscribe to the channel so that you can see when I'm putting out my next stream, because I, at this moment in time, don't really seem to have rhyme, reason, or schedule to it. You should also follow me on Instagram. I always post on Instagram when I'm going live with the link, and I post some other stuff on Instagram. I'm doing lots of reels, trying to, you know, get the people to follow me and do all the things for the algorithm. If you really like what I'm doing and you want to do more than just watch videos or, you know, sit through an ad on my videos, I don't do any sponsored content, so the best way to help support me in keeping the channel going is to make a donation via Ko-fi. I have it set up at £2. If you want to do one, great. Anything is better than nothing, but also nothing is okay, because, you know, we're living in a time of some economic hardship for people, and I'm just a person on the internet, so you know, I get by without donations, and I feel really awkward asking people for them, but, you know, I am trying to grow the channel. If I, you know, was getting more revenue from this particular source, I would be able, I think, I have lots of ideas for things that I could do with growing it and doing more, so we'll see what it goes. But yeah, if you haven't checked out Archaeology News for August 2023, you definitely need to do so. I'm talking about the British Museum thefts, stuff about Ötzi the Iceman, stuff about Pompeii, we've got stuff coming from China. I try to make it as global a program as I possibly can, so that I'm not just showing one version of what we're discovering about the past, and we can kind of look at everything around the world. Next video is going to be coming out not this Friday, but next Friday. Don't know yet what it's going to be, so we'll see. Thank you so much, guys, for coming onto the stream tonight, for your time and your attention. I very much appreciate it, and I will see you sometime soon. Have a good rest of your weekend, guys. Bye.